Hi everybody, it's Richard here again and welcome to another video. This time I thought I would have a go at this 21st tag that James Griffiths set up a few days ago, where you answer 20 questions on your first this and your first that and so forth. But the good thing about this one is you can change some of the questions, so you don't have to follow the exact 20 questions that James has set. So that's what I've done. I've changed about 3 or 4 of them. Okay, so we'll race through this. The first one is the first record that you got by your favourite artist or band. Well, there's two, because for a long time these two were my favourite artists, Mark Bolan and David Bowie, and these two singles were released more or less at the same time. And David Bowie, Life on Mars, and that's the exact copy that I bought when I was 7. And T-Rex the Groover, which is the exact copy I bought when I was 7. Although my original didn't come in the bag here, it was a normal white sleeve, but for some reason I managed to find a bag from a different single. I must have bought another single and then just put it in this. So that's the first question. The second question is the first debut album you ever owned. Now I'm taking this as the first debut album when it was their first album, so they hadn't released any other album whenever I bought it. That was the only album they'd ever released, and I'm going to go with the Smiths, their debut album, which I couldn't wait for this to come out. I think it was around February in 1984, and it didn't disappoint. Still a fantastic album. My first live album, and this is from 1981. And it's T-Rex in concert. Obviously it wasn't recorded in 1981 because they had long gone by then. This is from a late 1971 show. It's not very good at all. It's just very poorly recorded, and it sounds terrible. There's much better live albums out there, but at the time this was the only T-Rex live album you could get, so it was good to have, but it wasn't the best. Your first greatest hits album, and Smokey, greatest hits. Love it. This came out in 77, I believe, and I had this on vinyl. Must have been around 78 I got it, because I think, you know, we had a couple other singles at the time which were Oh Carol and For a Few Dollars More, and they were definitely 78. So the first greatest hits album. Next one is my first double album. Now I'm not going to count live albums or compilations. So the first double album bought in around 82ish was Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, or maybe late 81 actually. Yeah, fantastic album. Apparently some people think there's only one good song on this. Yeah, well, no, it's an absolutely brilliant album. No filler on this one. So that's my first double album. First classic album I owned, and I have to say this one here is Bowie's Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and Spiders from Mars, and this was bought around June or so of 1980, and this is the exact copy as well. I have an upgrade on gold vinyl, but this is the only other vinyl I have, and it's the original I bought back then. The first record you received as a Christmas gift. Now there's 2 of them here, and they're my old friends again. 1974. The Wombling songs from my parents, and also Remember You're a Womble from my parents. So these are not the originals, they're scratched to hell, so they are these I actually picked up again. Very cheap. The first album I got that I was disappointed with, and now this one was really difficult, and then I've been thinking about this for days, and it really hit me. The first album I was disappointed with is Paul Simon's One Trick Pony. Now the reason I bought this was I was getting really heavily into Paul Simon. I had the Simon & Garfunkel albums. I'd borrowed the Paul Simon album and the There Goes Raymond Simon album from 2 different people, and I had money in my pocket and I wanted to buy a Paul Simon album, but I didn't want to get those 2 because I already had heard them and I knew we'd get them down the line, and this was the only other one there. And I thought, I'll get it, but my brother says don't, because it's had really bad reviews, and I said no, I'll be fine. and I got it and I put it on, and the first song I thought was brilliant. I thought, wow, this is great, late in the evening, fantastic. I didn't like any of the rest of it at all. Now, this one has gone from zero to hero for me because I really love this album. What I didn't like was that sort of 70s, I know this is 1980, but it's that sort of 70s electric keyboardy type sound. I hated that, but now I really do like this, and some of the songs off this are amazing. Like Long Long Day, the female vocal in that is gorgeous. How the Heart Approaches What It Yearns is absolutely brilliant. Nobody is lovely as well. It's a gorgeous song. It's just it's a very moody album, but it's much better now. But back then, as a 14, 15-year-old, would I have been? I would actually probably have been 16. I didn't like it. Okay, the next question is one of my own. The first record I ever swapped with somebody, and it was my friend Gwen. I'm still friends with her, and I gave her this, Michael Jackson's Thriller, for this Roxy Music's Avalon. I got the better deal. I bought Thriller again. Actually, it's only recently, over the past couple of years or so. I saw it cheap and I thought, yeah, I like Beat It and want to be starting something, and Billie Jean, so I'll get it. The first record that I sold, this is one of my own as well. I very rarely sell albums, but there was a while back I wanted to get Iggy Pop's The Idiot, which was in a market stall, and I didn't have any money. So I sold a few albums so I could get that Iggy Pop's The Idiot, and the one I remember selling was Smokey's Greatest Hits again. So it was the first one I bought and it was the first one I sold, and I'm glad I've got it back because I absolutely adore this album. So that was the first one I sold. The first record I home taped, and I think that was probably very early 1981, and it was Adam the Ant's Kings of the Wild Frontier. I taped it from a friend across the road, and it wasn't long after that I bought it. But what I did do, rather than buy this straight away, I went out and bought their first album, Dirk Wears White Socks, which again I was a little bit disappointed in. Maybe not so much as Paul Simon, because I wasn't expecting that much from it. But in hindsight, I'm glad now that I did buy that. But at the time I thought, I wish I had bought this one, but I still had a tape copy, and it wasn't long before I bought it anyway. Number 12, the first record I bought on someone's recommendation. Well, I borrowed this and I thought it was absolutely brilliant, so I had to buy it. And it's Lou Reed's Transformer. I borrowed this from my friend Wayne, and it wasn't long before I actually went out and bought it. Again, I taped it, but I think I actually bought the Lou Reed's Greatest Hits first before I bought this. But I wish I had bought it there and then, because this is the green RCA International label, which I hate. His was the orange one, but even by that time I think it had gone to green. So fantastic album from 1972. Okay, the first record my parents disapproved of. Didn't disapprove of any, but I'll say the first record that my father didn't like, and he used to moan and complain about it whenever it was on Top of the Pops, and it was #1 for an eternity, and he couldn't stand it, and it was Bohemian Rhapsody. And he knew the song inside out because it was there for 9 weeks, but occasionally on Top of the Pops they didn't play the whole song. They obviously ran out of time and only played half of it, and it delighted him. The first record that caused me to lose my mind, well, I could go with the Boys and the T-Rexes and all the rest of it, but first new record that, not looking back, that was actually new, that made me go, oh my god, this is unbelievable, I've never heard anything like this before, and it's The Smiths' This Charming Man from 1983. Especially that guitar intro by Johnny Marr, I thought was absolutely fantastic. And I wore this single out. This is the exact single. I wish I had bought about 4 or 5 copies, but fantastic song, This Charming Man. First record you saw in someone else's collection, well, there's two. It's my cousin who lived up the road, and one was T-Rex's Electric Warrior, which I wanted from him, but he gave me an old crap, well, he sold me an old crappy Music for Pleasure one, which I thought was crap. crappy, but it's absolutely brilliant. But this is the one I want because it had Jeepster on it. That was my favourite song off this. But what he did do is, his had a free poster. He gave me the poster. I used to have it up on my wall whenever I was a kid, but it's long gone. But this was one of the first I saw in his collection, but I always remember seeing this as well. And it's The New Seekers Would Like to Teach the World to Sing, and this is actually not a half bad album. I do have a soft spot for the New Seekers. I love the Seekers, but I quite like the New Seekers as well. The first record you had difficulty in tracking down. Well, this is similar to a question in the movie tag yesterday, but this here, Lindsey Buckingham Holiday Road, this is a 12-inch, is a promo. This cost £11. I remember £11 in 1993. I searched everywhere for this and finally saw this in one of the classifieds in one of the music magazines. And so I think a check went out there and then, and I got it and loved it. And I liked the fact that there was two Holiday Roads, one on each side, so you could play one to keep the other one pristine. So Holiday Road, Lindsey Buckingham. The first record you bought a second copy of. I'm going to say, rather than just me, the household, it's actually my brother. Had ABBA's Greatest Hits, which he bought in 1976, which he played quite often. Really liked it. I love this album. It's a brilliant album. But then it started jumping. Now in those days you didn't know that you could wet clean a record, so there's obviously something stuck to it. So he got another one for that Christmas and he gave me his old one, and it did jump. But then a couple of years later, this idea, I'm going to clean records using water, and it played well after that. So ABBA's Greatest Hits. Right, another one of mine is the first album that is listed alphabetically in my collection spreadsheet, and it's this one. It's ABBA again, even though this is actually Bjorn, Benny and Agneta Frida. It goes down on my spreadsheet as ABBA, and it's listed alphabetically in my collection as well. Ring Ring. This was their first album. The first record you bought after becoming involved with the vinyl community. Well, basically what that means for me is the first record I bought since getting back into vinyl, because it was the vinyl community that got me back into vinyl. I hadn't been making any videos, I just was watching an awful lot, and there was this record shop in Ballabina, and it was a second-hand record shop. It was a flea pit. It's now owned by Johnny, but it was a flea pit then, and I went in and I bought all these cheap records. But the first album was this one here, and it's Graham Parker and Heat Treatment. I had this in CD. This and Howlin' Wind are his best two albums, and this is fantastic. So yeah, bought that. And then the first record you bought, mail order. Well, we're going back to 1982 again, and the first two were bought at the same time, and again we're T-Rex here, and these are actually Australian copies. They weren't bought from Australia. One is Great Hits by T-Rex, and the other is Dandy and the Underworld by T-Rex. And you'll notice that this one here does not have the die cut. This is just a normal sleeve. So yeah, those two there. But also in 82 I bought, I believe there was 3 albums from the one seller, and one was Queen, their debut album. Now this is actually an Italian copy. This is very cheap, which is why I bought it, but I never actually saw this in any of the record shops at home, so I picked that up. And The Clash, London Calling, which was going extremely cheap as well. And I never actually saw this in the record shops, and it was only a couple of years old too, which is weird, but I got that. That was my first Clash album. And the third one was another T-Rex one, and it was Futuristic Dragon, which is now sitting proudly in the collection of Mr. James Griffiths, the guy that started this thread. Okay, that's me for now. I really enjoyed doing that, and I hope other people have a go at this. So I hope to have another video relatively soon. Okay, that's me now. All the best. Bye bye.